Today we're going to be talking about building on Arbitrum 1 and what Arbitrum 1 is. Um, so you might have heard of it. You probably have heard of Arbitrum. This is going to be a fairly simple review of what Arbitrum 1 is particularly, and the bounties and some ideas on what you can build during the hackathon for this one. Cool. So TLDR, Arbitrum is a layer 2 scaling solution for Ethereum. It comes with a combination of different benefits, actually in a way that none of the other L2s right now actually have the same benefits as Arbitrum does. So basically we have trustless security, which means it's a layer 2, it rolls up to Ethereum, and you just need one honest party to keep Arbitrum secure. So as long as there's at least one honest party on the roll up, through fraud proofs and things like that, Arbitrum can remain secure, since it inherits security benefits from Ethereum. Secondly, it is compatible with Ethereum. So all existing Solidity contracts or Viper contracts or any EVM contracts basically can work as it is on Arbitrum with no modification required. And same goes for like all sorts of transactions that you can do in Ethereum. Everything is fully compatible with Arbitrum. It is obviously much more scalable since it moves computation off the layer 1 onto the layer 2, allowing for higher throughput, cheaper fees, which is the minimum cost part of it, where you know technically, like Arbitrum does this really cool thing called compressed call data. So it is trying to spend the minimum gas possible in the roll-up transactions. So it has really cheap costs for using Arbitrum on chain. Obviously, there are other layer 2 platforms and other layer 2 chains that provide some of these features, but it is the combination of these and some more that we're going to talk about that don't really get offered outside of Arbitrum today. Um, so apart from that, there's this thing called Arbitrum Nitro, which is sort of the latest upgrade to the Arbitrum network. So Arbitrum was one of the first optimistic rollup chains that came out a few years ago. That is what we now call Arbitrum Classic. And a while ago came the Nitro upgrade, which was a pretty major upgrade actually, which improved upon the design of Arbitrum Classic a lot and added a bunch of new features. So first is what I was talking about earlier, advanced call data compression. So basically, layer 2s and rollups, they have to periodically make transactions to the layer 1 to like inherit security and post proofs of state on layer 1. So Arbitrum has done some really cool WebAssembly things to make this call data as small as possible and as efficient as possible to post to the L1. And this is possible with the Nitro upgrade. In fact, you can actually build your own Arbitrum chain. That is not the topic of this workshop, but so sorry for the divergence, but you can actually build your own Arbitrum chain like an L2 or an L3 using what they call Arbitrum Orbit. And you get all these benefits and you can actually do like WebAssembly stuff on there yourself. Like you're not restricted to just Solidity, but we'll dig more into non-Solidity contracts in the Stylus workshop today. Anyway, so there's advanced call data compression. They have separate contexts for executing transactions and for fault proving. Again, allows for lower costs, lower fees for regular users on chain. It has compatibility with Ethereum, how gas is handled, how everything is treated. It allows for retries. So if a roll-up transaction fails by chance, the network itself will retry safely and post a second roll-up transaction and so on to make sure it works. And it has support for get tracing, allowing for deep debugging and like really detailed support for people who are building like really complex apps. But all of this is deep technical stuff. This is more about how Arbitrum itself works. So instead, we'll jump into sort of why it's important to you. You as the dApp developer, as the hackathon participant, why should you care about Arbitrum and all of these? So This is a screenshot from L2 Beat, which is basically the tracker of all these different layer twos that exist today and where they're at. So, a couple of things. This was taken earlier this morning, so literally just like a few hours ago. Um, so, two very important things to notice over here. Number one, Arbitrum 1 is by far the biggest layer two in terms of TVL and market share and activity. So you can see like Arbitrum 1 has like 14.7 billion TVL on the chain. And the second best is Optimism's mainnet has 8.1 billion TVL. So Arbitrum 1 is used a lot of TVL, lots of DeFi applications, lots happening on chain. And second thing to notice is from this entire list of like the most popular layer 2 networks, Arbitrum 1 is the only stage 1 L2. What that means is Arbitrum 1 is the only one that has an implementation of fault proofs on mainnet. It is still not 100% permissionless fault proofs, I will say, but it is the only one that has even like a select set of fault proofs on mainnet. So if malicious activity does happen, if something goes wrong on the L2, Arbitrum 1 does support, a set of people can create fraud proofs on mainnet to roll back the state. So it is, you know, ahead relatively of other L2s on the market. So that is a pretty big signal, I think, why you should care about Arbitrum 1. Apart from that, what is important to you is since it's, as I mentioned, fully Ethereum compatible, all your favorite tooling, everything you've learned in the Ethereum ecosystem, like MetaMask, Ethers.js, Hardhat, Foundry, Web3.js, VM, Wallet Connect, Solidity, Viper, everything works with zero modification, like no compatibility differences. There's a few layer twos out there that are pretty similar to ETH, but not exactly. Like there are like some differences, like certain code, like it doesn't actually work the exact same way on the layer two. But with Arbitrum, contracts don't need modifications; they will work as it is. And they have like pretty generous support for like EVM compatibility. As we'll learn in the Arbitrum stylus workshops later on, they actually also have this thing called EVM Plus, which actually extends the EVM and adds even more features and more stuff you can do, such as using languages other than Solidity to write smart contracts. You can actually use like Rust, C, C++, Golang, etc. But we'll save that for the stylus workshop. But for this one, all your tools you're used to for building on Ethereum, etc., all the contracts that already exist, no modification required, everything just works. So that's pretty cool. And for this hackathon, obviously, there's these two bounties. Bounty number one for Stylus. We'll discuss Stylus in more detail in the next workshop. But there is the bounty of like best apps on Arbitrum overall. So building on Arbitrum 1 is perfectly valid for the second bounty, which has $9,000 of prizes available to you. So you can build, a variety of different things. We'll go over some ideas that I have for what you guys can build shortly. Um, but yeah, that's so like any bounty number two is like perfectly applicable for anybody who's building on Arbitrum 1 or any of the other Arbitrum products. Like you can be doing Stylus, you can be doing Arbitrum 1, you can be creating your own blockchain using Arbitrum Orbit. Like all of that is perfectly valid for bounty number two. But Arbitrum 1 is the easiest to get started with since it's as I said, like fully compatible with Ethereum, all of the tooling, all the entire ecosystem, everything just works. And everything is just faster and cheaper and nicer. And you get the benefit of being in an ecosystem which has, significant usage already within the sort of layer two ecosystem that exists today. With that said, I have a list of ideas I want to go over. There's not much technically, like we're not going to jump into like showing off code or whatever for this workshop because it's Ethereum documentation, it's like writing Solidity contracts and everything. It's available everywhere. You can find those resources on Learn Web3, other places. So we won't dig into coding too much for this workshop, but let's talk about some ideas, and then we can just move on to any Q&A if anybody has any, and I'll just point you to some resources. So we definitely don't need the full 45 minutes today, I think. But number one, for this hackathon, what should you build? So I have four sort of categories over here that I think you can use as inspiration. So number one is on-chain games. So since it's a fast network and it's a cheap network, you can build some really cool, gaming experiences that can leverage these fast transaction times and cheap fees for Arbitrum. There's a variety of different, gaming ideas, specifically what you might want to build. It could be like TCGs, like card games, or like role playing games. It could be competitive games or like PvP, like player versus player games, or even player versus AI sort of games, especially with some of the other sponsors that exist in the hackathon. Perhaps having like people compete some against some sort of AI agents. One idea in particular that I think is pretty cool. I saw this earlier today on Twitter. It's not my idea, but I saw this earlier today on Twitter, and I would love to see somebody do this. Is an AI version of Among Us. So, hopefully you guys know about Among Us, the imposter game. So, what you can do is, let's say there's like a bunch of people, there's like 10 people who are playing in the game, and maybe like one of them is an imposter, and the imposter is actually an AI agent. It's not a human. And the goal of the AI agent is that anybody it like quote unquote infects will also become an AI agent, right? So like originally like there's a human playing, but then if you get infected, like the human basically can't play the game anymore and gets replaced by an AI agent. And the goal for the different humans is that they're all talking to each other on like chat, and they basically have to figure out who's an AI and who's a person, and they have to kick out all the AI before the AI wins and turns everybody into AIs. So I don't know. It's kind of a cool little AI based sort of like Among Us game where you have to figure out who's a human and who's not. And you can you can have like participation fees on chain. You can issue like prizes, like winning NFTs on chain, things like that, and like summaries of the game points, etc. on chain, and then use like AI models from, let's say, like training something on Flock, or like storing data on different decentralized DB solutions, and like build this game out. So one very specific example inspired by a tweet I saw earlier today, but on-chain games, pretty big area space, lots you can do here, combining aspects of like, on-chain transactions and AI agents. So look into that. Second, I think second topic is like building some cool social experiences, especially with like Farcaster as a sponsor for the hackathon. You can build some, cool Farcaster frames for doing like on-chain activity on Arbitrum. So like simple examples could be, well, not simple, but I guess like some examples could be like building a Farcaster frame that allows you to you know swap tokens on Arbitrum directly from a frame. Um, so that could be pretty cool. Or you can have like bots on Farcaster that, if you tag the bot on Farcaster and do something, like it can do some stuff on Arbitrum for you. So interesting like social experiences that can combine like Farcaster's decentralized network with on-chain activity on Arbitrum. Um, and yeah, number three is more towards sort of data analytics, or people who like dashboards and people who like visualizing different types of data. So Arbitrum clearly has a lot of on-chain activity, right? Largest by TVL, lots of DeFi activity going on there, tons of things happening on chain. So building some sort of data dashboards to visualize all this on-chain activity, whatever metrics you care about, and you can use like decentralized data solutions here, like Tableland, Ceramic, or WeebDB, to create those data dashboards. And yeah, like like do some cool stuff, do some cool stuff on chain. So this reminds me of a project we had last season in the hackathon where somebody built a dashboard for some chain, and what you could do is you could build out like your queries. Like let's say like you have all this on-chain data that you're storing in a decentralized database, and then you can like build out your specific queries to visualize that data, and then that visualized data oops, sorry and then that visualized data, you can mint it as an NFT, and then you can like sell that NFT, and people who have that NFT can look at your data dashboard. You can look at those queries, gain whatever insights there are to gain. So things like that could be cool. Um, and then fourth, AI intents. So we talked about this earlier as well, but building AI bots that can execute on-chain intents or on-chain transactions on your behalf, um, using like decentralized AI models, for example, by training them on Flock, or sort of just like Q&A bots, knowledge bases, intent bots, anything like that. So, for example, like messaging a Telegram bot, like swap X for Y, and then it does that on Arbitrum for you, things like that. Um, that could be cool. And yeah, these are just like four ideas that I had. Obviously, it is up to your imagination. I'm sure some people, I'm sure, already have some ideas they want to build. Otherwise, we're not restricting you to these four. Feel free to build whatever you want. But I'm just kind of going off of like what I think could be cool. But and like resources, we didn't go into code because again, it's really the same as Ethereum. Like everything works basically the exact same way as Ethereum. So I'd suggest, there's the Arbitrum docs. If you want to dig deeper specifically into how Arbitrum works, you can go to Learn Web3 faucets to get testnet tokens for the Arbitrum testnet. And there is the Arbitrum Discord if you need help from somebody from Arbitrum. Like for whatever reason, we're not able to answer you in the Learn Web3 Discord, but um, yeah, you can reach out there if necessary. But with that, I think we can actually just jump on to Q&A. So we have a couple of questions in chat. Arav is asking, do sponsors judge on the basis of how important of a role their product has on your project? Um, I mean, to some extent, yes, because like to some extent, like if if you're integrating with a sponsor where, you know, the sponsor's tech doesn't really contribute much, like you're just integrating with it just to try to go after the bounty, but like it doesn't really matter that much. Like, it's like compared like in competition to somebody where maybe they integrated with that tech in a way where like it really really depends on that specific technology, like yes it could like relatively be considered worse. But specific to this topic, since we're talking about Arbitrum 1 as a layer 2 chain, it is like a EVM compatible chain, and it's the same Solidity contracts and Solidity code, etc. So yes, there's technical differences in how Arbitrum itself is built and how it is different from, let's say, things like Optimism. But when it comes to deploying contracts on Arbitrum, like, you know, for in the case of Arbitrum 1, like that's basically the most you can do, particularly. So um, I think like in this specific case, I don't know if like it doesn't matter that it matters that much, but um, yeah. Second question we have from Mimi is that for the data dashboards ideas and incorporating ceramic, which Arbitrum product would you use, Stylus or One? Um, you can use either realistically. For that sort of use case, I think One actually fits a little bit better because Stylus is really designed for more when you want to do a lot of complicated stuff directly on chain, right? Like we'll get into it again in the Stylus workshop, but Stylus's core sort of selling point is that it allows you to use languages like Rust and C and C++ to build smart contracts instead of using things like Solidity, right? And it allows you to like So like being able to use Rust, for example, like you get access, you can do like more complex stuff that maybe isn't possible in Solidity very easily. But for the use case of, let's say, like a data dashboard where you might be minting an NFT for the queries and stuff like that, um, one will just be easier because, like you're not really super dependent on using Rust for that. Like, and like you might save time just going with Solidity. It's like we're building NFT contracts in Solidity is a fairly common standard, whereas doing it on Stylus, like it's a very new product, so it might make like you might run into some issues, yada yada yada. Like if you want to explore it, there's nothing like you technically can't use either. One just might be easier. Um, and like the usage of ceramic doesn't really change the decision of like whether you want to use stylus or one. Cool. Hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, next question. So integrate sponsor DBs and Solidity, deploy in Arbitrum, get two bounties. So when it comes to the DB solutions like Ceramic, Tableland, and WeaveDB, neither of those three actually require you to do anything on chain. They all operate as their own independent networks, and they work sort of in parallel to like chains like Arbitrum, right? Like Arbitrum is its own network and its own chain, and then Ceramic Table and BBDB, they have their own networks. They're not really blockchains, right? It's like think about like IPFS, for example. Like IPFS isn't really a blockchain, it's just a decentralized network where you can store files. So similarly, like Tableland, Ceramic, and WeaveDB, like they're not really blockchains. They're just decentralized data networks, and they work in parallel to whatever chain you're using. So neither of those choices affect the other. You can use whatever chain and whatever DB you're comfortable with in parallel, and neither of them should affect the other. Um, but yeah, like in regards to like being able to target two bounties, yeah, like you're encouraged to build projects that target multiple bounties instead of just one, because that is the best use case. Like integrating all these different sponsor technologies together, that's what that's that's like the ideal scenario we're looking for. Um, Okay, we have a question in Hackathon. Will they teach us how to develop dApps from scratch? Not from scratch per se. Hackathons, it's a competition. So if you're looking for learning resources, check out Learn Web3. Like the website has a bunch of learning resources. If you're brand new to the Web3 space, um, I'd suggest like taking some time to go over the resources initially. Hackathon, as you said, doesn't start. There's like 3, 4 more days up until that time, and for the next 3, 4 days, we're only doing workshops. So come to the workshops, learn about different things, go through resources on Learn Web3, and then try to do something simple for the hackathon. Like submitting something is always better than nothing, but no, this is like apart outside of these workshops, like we're not going to be teaching like how to build a dApp like from scratch. But there will be people around to help. So if you go through those resources and come to the workshops and we're building something for the hackathon, if you have any questions, we're there to help. What if I don't have a team? If you don't have a team, the Learn Web3 Discord, go to the Hacker Introduction channel, post an intro over there. There's a lot of people looking for teammates or looking for teams on there. You can try to find somebody over there. If not, it is also perfectly okay to participate as a solo hacker. It's up to you. But if you do want to form a team, go to the Hacker Intro channel on the Discord, and there's a bunch of people looking for teammates and stuff. So you can talk to them, you can tell them what your background is, what sort of teammates you're looking for, and hopefully you'll find somebody over there. Do I need to register my team? Um, Eventually, yes. Like everybody on the team must individually register for the hackathon, but once everybody is registered, like on the hackathon portal on the website, you'll get the option of creating a team, where you basically just invite everybody into a single team. Um, you don't need to do it right now. You can do it at any point up until submission deadline, which is April 5th. But before you finalize your submission, yes, you will create the team on the portal. But each individual hacker must individually apply. and first be accepted to become part of the team. Is there a limit to the team size? Yes, 4 people max. When are we getting the AI credit? So we sent over the list to OpenAI today. I don't know how long they will take to respond, probably within the week. We're aiming, like, you should get them by the time hacking begins, like March 21st, like 99% you will get them before that. As soon as they're available, we'll confirm it on the Discord. Can you do it alone without a team? Yes, it's perfectly okay to hack solo. You don't need to be in a team.